Let's move the chains. Time for Football at 4.
All-ACC preseason list put out today. This is The Drive with Tim Donnelly on 99.9 The Fan. It's Football at 4. So we're talking football, All-ACC preseason list.
Yes, give it to me.
And as with any list, as with any of these teams, whether it's All-Pro, All-NBA, All-Star, it's the snubs, right? It's the snubs. Payton Wilson, not All-ACC.
Yeah, they got that one wrong.
Now, it'd be one thing if it were a position like quarterback or kicker or something where there's one slot. There are 3 linebackers on this list.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me Payton Wilson is not one of the 3 best linebackers in the ACC coming back this year? You're telling me there are 2 on Clemson alone. I mean, I could be convinced somebody like Jeremiah Trotter Jr., right? The health elements. Like, there's some argument. I don't see Barrett Carter of Clemson being anything other than the media voters looked at it and said, Clemson's pretty good, right? And I can't name 3 linebackers. So, fine, go with him. There are some storylines here. I'm not going to read you the whole preseason All-ACC football team because it's a whole bunch of names and, it'll turn into white noise. But there are a few takeaways from the list here. And by the way, preseason player of the year was also announced today. Drake Maye.
Shocker.
Well, we'll start there. Carolina had Drake Maye, All-ACC, Tez Walker, wide receiver transfer from Kent State, All-ACC, and the aforementioned Cedric Gray of their linebacker core, All-ACC. And then Drake Maye was their preseason player of the year. My takeaway for Carolina fans right now is I thought Drake Maye's margin of victory would have been bigger. Right? He for the player of the year, he had 50% of the votes. 88 out of a possible 176. Jordan Travis, quarterback Florida State, had 66 of the votes.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too.
That's not a gigantic margin of victory.
I voted for Drake.
So did I. And I kind of did it as if like, well, it's going to be Drake, and I moved on, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was like no-brainer.
I did not think like this might be the vote that puts him over the top. Like, when someone's running unopposed and you're at the ballot box and you have to fill in their name anyway, you're not thinking like, oh, this is going to change things. I mean, 22 votes is not as much as you would have thought for preseason player of the year. He had 107 out of 176 votes for All-ACC quarterback. That's fascinating to me. We're gonna come back to Payton Wilson, by the way. Duke, my reaction is the respect is real from the media. Duke and Carolina had the same amount of All-ACC selections. They each had 3. Graham Barton was the top vote getter. The offensive tackle for Duke was the top vote getter amongst all offensive linemen. And sorry, offensive linemen, right? I love my linemen, right? And I believe they do not get the credit that they deserve. But I also understand that judging what you do is difficult. Right? Without knowing scheme, without knowing what your offensive line coach is asking you to do, it's very difficult to judge what you do, play in and play out, unless you're giving up a sack or something obvious, right? Then it's like, oh, that was a bad play for you. But even then, you might have expected a chip or you might have expected some help from the inside. It's really tough. So I believe when the media is voting on offensive linemen, there is a lot of just like team respect, right? There's a lot of just, oh, that team is well run and they can run the football, so they must have a good offensive lineman somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the fact that Graham Barton of Duke was the top vote getter on offensive line of any offensive lineman in the ACC means a lot of media members just went, Elko runs a hard-nosed program, right? The big guys are well-trained there, and this one is the guy that's going to represent them. Let's all vote for him. It's like a groupthink thing. So Duke should their reputation is leveling up a bit. Wake, the disrespect is real. If Duke, the respect is real, Wake, the disrespect is real.
Very real.
No players. We were talking earlier, me and Dennis off air. I think one of the wide receivers should have been on there, and maybe Wake should have selected who they were promoting and like campaigned or something, because I believe it's Donovan Green. I think he's explosive at wide receiver. His yards per catch were big. There's A.T. Perry's 80+ catches and 1,000+ yards that's out there for the rest of them to absorb. So I think it would have been Donovan Green. There's a few others it could have been.
I actually picked on mine. I actually picked Jamal Banks from Wake Forest, and that's the thing, because they have a plethora of so many good wideouts that probably split the votes out, because once you get past Calhoun from Duke, the voting was actually spread out pretty wide.
Exactly. And anytime you have awards lists or selections like this, it's easy to go to the analogy of like the Oscars, which we did earlier, but I'll go again. Sometimes you see like best supporting actor and there's 2 actors from the same movie. It's like, oh, they're not going to win, because anybody that loved that movie, it's going to be split and they're not going to get enough votes. Or you see it in sports when you have 2 MVP candidates on the same basketball team or whatever it is. You're not going to either win because they're going to split. So maybe that's what happened to Wake, but the fact that they have 0 on the All-ACC list, that's a little surprising to me. And then there's Payton Wilson.
Yes.
First of all, it's disrespectful to Payton Wilson, because he alone, like, he doesn't need narrative to be an All-ACC player. Right? He's put it on tape. He's been very good on the field. He's made big plays. But also there is a narrative element here. NC State led the ACC in points allowed a season ago. Right? So that's one measurement of who had the best defense. Mm-hmm. Aiden White is All-ACC. He's one of their corners. But how are you going to take the best defense who's returning some of its best players and only have one player on the All-ACC list? That's where I get confused, right? And I know that the selections are averages and everything, but every media member should take it upon themselves to look at the big picture when you're putting in your ballot, right? It's not just as simple as beep, 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 done, right? And I know it's all digital now. I would have loved to been around for the days where you had to check off boxes by hand and mail it in, but Payton Wilson deserves to be in, is what I'm saying. But also, in addition to that, NC State, their defense, having been one of, if not the best in the ACC last year, deserves to have more than one player on the all defense, the All-ACC preseason defense. That's kind of, when you see so many Clemson players, I can't help but think that a lot, filled in the players that they know and then went for the rest. I'm just going to say Clemson. And that's a little disappointing to me. Not naming names, of course, when it comes to voters. One more little just addition here. Riley Leonard did finish in the top 5, tied 5th in preseason player of the year with 1 vote.
Hey, there you go.
There you go. Jordan Travis, 66. This is going to be... Jordan Travis last year had 31 total touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Riley Leonard had 33 total touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Jordan Travis gets 66 votes. Riley Leonard gets 1. That's a good sound right there. Just presenting the numbers for you to have your own reactions.
Just throwing it out there.